The needle slid into his vein with practiced precision. Jane's hands steady even as blood pooled on the sterile white sheets beneath him. The man on her kitchen table was dying, his breath coming in shallow gasps, and she had exactly 90 seconds to save his life before the debt collector, standing in her doorway, decided she was more valuable dead than alive. "Hold him still," Jane commanded, not looking up from her work. Her fingers moved with the mechanical efficiency of someone who'd spent 6 years in Seattle Grace's ER, someone who'd seen gunshot wounds, stabbings, overdoses, and every variation of human violence the city could produce. This was just another Tuesday, except it wasn't, because the man bleeding out on her IKEA dining table was connected to something far darker than a random mugging, and the stranger watching her work wore a suit that cost more than her annual salary. "You're good at this," the stranger said. His voice was deep, accented, Korean maybe, with that particular tone of someone who was used to being obeyed without question. "Steady hands, no panic. I like that in a woman." Jane's jaw tightened, but she didn't respond. The IV was in, fluids running, and she'd already packed the wound with gauze to slow the bleeding. The bullet had gone through clean, missing major arteries by centimeters. "Lucky." The man groaned, his eyes fluttering open for a moment before rolling back. "He'll live," she said, finally looking up, and that's when she saw him properly, for the first time. Kang Daeun. She didn't know his name yet, but she'd remember this moment for the rest of her life. The way he stood framed in her doorway like he owned it, owned her, owned everything in a 10-mile radius. Tall, maybe 6'2", with the kind of lean, muscular build that came from discipline rather than vanity. His black hair was pushed back from his face, revealing sharp features that would have been beautiful if they weren't so cold. He wore all black suit, shirt, even his tie, and his eyes were the darkest thing about him. They tracked over her body with the assessment of someone appraising property. "Good," he said, stepping fully into her apartment and closing the door behind him. The lock clicked with a finality that made her stomach drop. "Because if he died, I would have been very disappointed. Min is one of my best men." "Your best men should probably avoid getting shot," Jane said, already regretting the words as they left her mouth. But exhaustion made her reckless. She just worked a 12-hour shift, come home to find her door kicked in and her living room trashed, and now she was performing emergency medicine on a gang member in her kitchen at 2 in the morning. Daeun smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. "You're brave, or stupid. I haven't decided which yet." He moved closer, circling the table like a predator. "Jane Morrison, 28, ER nurse at Seattle Grace. You live alone. No boyfriend, no pets. You send money every month to your sister Zara in Los Angeles. Your parents died in a car accident 9 years ago. You were 19. Zara was 15. You've been taking care of her ever since." Ice flooded Jane's veins. "How do you know that?" "I make it my business to know things about people who interest me." He stopped directly across from her, the dying man between them. "And you, Jane Morrison, have interested me for exactly 6 months, 2 weeks, and 4 days. Before we continue, if you're loving this dark romance already, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. Trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next." Jane's hands had started to tremble, so she busied herself checking Min's pulse, anything to avoid looking at this man who apparently had been watching her for months without her knowledge. "What do you want?" "Right now. I want you to finish saving Min's life. After that," his voice dropped lower, intimate and threatening at once, "we'll discuss your sister's debt." "My sister's what?" "Debt. $2 million to be exact. She borrowed it 6 months ago from one of my associates, used it to pay off a gambling problem, I believe. Or maybe it was drugs. Does it matter?" He pulled out his phone, tapped the screen, and turned it toward her. Jane saw a contract, Zara's signature at the bottom, the amount that made her vision blur. The payment was due 3 days ago. She's disappeared, which means the debt transfers to you. Family clause. It's very clearly stated in the agreement. That's insane. I didn't sign anything. I don't owe you a goddamn thing. No. Daeun pocketed his phone, then reached into his jacket. Jane flinched, expecting a weapon, but he pulled out a photograph instead. Her apartment building, taken from across the street. Jane herself visible through her living room window, coffee cup in hand, morning light streaming in. The timestamp read 4 months ago. I know where you live, obviously. I also know where you work. I know you have a patient, Mr. Chen, room 304, who you visit every Tuesday, even though he's not your assignment because his daughter lives in Beijing and can't afford to fly out. I know you stop at the same coffee shop every morning. Order the same thing, oat milk latte, extra shot. I know you run at 5 a.m. on Saturdays around Green Lake. I know everything about you, Jane. Every single thing. The violation of it, the sheer invasiveness made her want to vomit. But more than that, it made her angry. So what? You're going to threaten me into paying $2 million I don't have. Good luck with that. My savings account has maybe 8,000 in it. Take it. We're done. Oh, we're not done. He walked around the table slowly, deliberately, until he was standing beside her. This close, she could smell him. Expensive cologne, something dark and woody, and underneath that, the faint metallic tang of violence. Money isn't the only currency. In my world, Jane, there are other ways to pay debts, more interesting ways. Her breath caught. You can't be serious. I'm always serious. His hand came up, fingers brushing her cheek so lightly it almost felt gentle. Almost. 3 days. That's what I'm giving you. 72 hours to produce $2 million. If you can do that, we'll consider your sister's debt paid, and you'll never see me again. But if you can't... His thumb traced her jawline, tilted her chin up so she was forced to meet those black eyes. Then you and I are going to discuss alternative payment arrangements. Do you understand? Jane jerked away from his touch, pulse hammering. You're talking about slavery, human trafficking. That's what this is. I'm talking about collateral. You save lives, Jane. I watched you save Min's life tonight with equipment you probably stole from the hospital and skills that most surgeons would envy. You're valuable, rare, and I take very good care of my valuable things. He smiled again, and this time there was something almost warm in it. Something possessive and hungry that made her skin prickle with awareness that wasn't entirely fear. 3 days, starting now. He left without another word, his footsteps silent on the stairs. 2 men she hadn't even noticed materialized from the shadows to collect Min, carrying him out like he weighed nothing. And then Jane was alone in her destroyed apartment with blood on her hands and a countdown clock ticking in her head. She didn't sleep that night. Instead, she called Zara 17 times, each call going straight to voicemail. By dawn, she'd cleaned the blood from her kitchen, filed a police report about the break-in that she knew would go nowhere, and started making a mental inventory of everything she owned that could possibly be sold. Her car, 7 years old and barely running, maybe 5,000. Her jewelry, all of it cheap sentiment, maybe 200. Her laptop, her TV, her grandmother's wedding ring that was supposed to go to Zara someday. Another few thousand if she was lucky. She could maybe scrape together 15,000 in 3 days if she sold everything she owned and cashed out her pathetic retirement fund. 15,000 against 2 million. It wasn't even a drop in the bucket. It was a joke. By the time her shift started at Seattle Grace, Jane had already decided she was going to run. Take whatever cash she could get. Buy a bus ticket to somewhere far away, maybe Montana or North Dakota. Someplace small where Korean gangsters didn't operate. She'd change her name, start over, let Zara deal with her own mess for once. But then she walked into room 304 for her Tuesday visit with Mr. Chen, and everything changed. The old man was awake, smiling at her like he always did. His Mandarin-accented English warm and affectionate. "Jane, my favorite nurse, you're late today. I was worried." "Sorry, Mr. Chen. Rough night." She checked his vitals automatically. Noted his oxygen levels were good. His color better than last week. Stage 4 lung cancer. The doctors had given him 3 months 6 months ago. But he was still fighting. "Rough night? You're too young for rough nights. You should be out dancing, finding a nice young man, not working yourself to death in this hospital." He patted her hand with his papery fingers. "My daughter called yesterday. She's saving money to visit next month. I told her not to bother, but you know how children are. Stubborn." Jane felt her eyes burn. "She should visit. You're worth visiting." "Ah, you're too kind. That's your problem, you know. Too kind. The world takes advantage of kind people." His eyes, still sharp despite the disease ravaging his body, studied her face. "Something's wrong. Tell an old man. Maybe I can help." "It's nothing. Just family stuff." "Family is never nothing. Family is everything, even when they break your heart." He squeezed her hand. "Whatever it is, Jane, you'll figure it out. You're stronger than you think. I see it in you. That strength, that steel underneath all that kindness." She left his room with tears streaming down her face, and that's when she saw him. Daeun, standing at the end of the hallway like he'd materialized from her nightmares. Still in all black, still impossibly handsome and terrifying. He didn't approach, didn't speak, just watched her with those obsidian eyes. A reminder. 72 hours. The clock was ticking. Jane made it to the staff bathroom before she broke down completely, sobbing into her hands while the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. She couldn't run, because if she ran, Daeun would hurt the people she cared about. Mr. Chen, her co-workers, maybe even random patients just to prove a point. Men like him didn't make empty threats, which meant she had exactly one option left. Her hands were shaking when she pulled out her phone and dialed the number he'd left on the calling card. The black lotus symbol mocked her from the small rectangle of paper, elegant and deadly. He answered on the first ring. "I was wondering when you'd call. I want to meet, tonight, to discuss terms." "Terms?" He sounded amused. "You think you have room to negotiate?" "I think you wouldn't have given me 3 days if you just wanted to kill me. You want something specific, so let's talk about it like adults instead of you stalking me around the city." A pause. Then, "There's a club in Pioneer Square. Obsidian. Be there at 10 tonight. Come alone. And Jane." His voice dropped to something that made her shiver despite herself. "Wear something pretty. I want to see what I'm buying." The line went dead. Obsidian was exactly what Jane expected. All dark wood and darker clientele. The kind of place where money and violence intertwined so seamlessly, you couldn't tell where one ended and the other began. The bouncer took one look at her, a black dress she'd borrowed from her neighbor, because everything she owned was scrubs or jeans, and nodded her through without asking for ID. Apparently, Daeun had made it clear she was expected. The club interior was designed to disorient. Low lighting, red and purple neon cutting through smoke machine fog, music with a bass line that vibrated through her sternum. Private booths lined the walls, each one occupied by men in expensive suits and women who looked like they cost more per hour than Jane made in a week. She felt every eye track her as she moved through the space, the only black woman in a sea of Asian faces, her natural hair pulled into a high puff because she'd refused to straighten it even for this. If you're still watching, drop a like and let me know in the comments what you think Jane should do. Run or negotiate. Your girl is in deep. A server appeared at her elbow, female, young, with the kind of dead eyes that spoke of seeing too much too soon. "Mr. Kang is waiting for you. This way." She was led to a private room at the back, separated from the main club by soundproof glass and heavy curtains. The door opened, and Jane's breath caught despite her best efforts to remain calm. Daeun sat on a leather sofa that probably cost more than her car. One arm draped along the back, legs spread in that casual masculine pose that radiated ownership. He'd changed since the hospital, now wearing a black shirt unbuttoned at the collar, no tie, sleeves rolled to reveal forearms corded with muscle and decorated with ink. She caught glimpses of a tattoo crawling up from his collarbone, Korean characters in elegant script, and another one circling his wrist like a bracelet. "Jane," he said, her name in his mouth sounding like something profane and sacred at once. "You came. I wasn't entirely sure you would. You didn't leave me much choice." She stayed by the door, refusing to move closer, even though every instinct screamed at her to run. "Let's skip the games. What exactly do you want from me?" "Direct, I appreciate that," gestured to the seat across from him. "Sit. Have a drink. We're going to be here a while. I don't drink with criminals." "No?" His smile was sharp. "Then you must not drink at all, because everyone in this city is a criminal in some way. The difference is I'm honest about it." When she didn't move, his expression hardened. "Sit down, Jane. That wasn't a request." She sat, but only because standing felt like it gave him too much power. The sofa was obscenely comfortable, and she hated that she noticed. Hated that she noticed everything about him. The way his fingers drummed against his thigh, the flex of his jaw when he was thinking, the intensity of his gaze that made her feel stripped bare. $2 million, she said. "That's what Zara owes you. I can't pay it. I think you already know that. So what's this really about?" Daeun poured amber liquid from a crystal decanter, pushed one glass toward her, even though she'd refused, and kept one for himself. "6 months ago, you saved Min's life the first time. There was a shooting outside the hospital. Drive-by, gang-related. Nothing to do with my organization. Min was there picking up medication for his daughter. Wrong place, wrong time. He took 2 bullets to the chest, and your hospital was the closest." Jane remembered that night. Chaos, screaming, blood everywhere. She'd been the first to reach the victim, had kept him alive through sheer force of will until they got him to the OR. "I came to the hospital to check on him," Daeun continued. "And I saw you, this small woman covered in someone else's blood, yelling at doctors 3 times your age about transfusion protocols and surgical intervention. You were magnificent, terrifying and brilliant, and so completely unaware of how extraordinary you were." He took a slow sip of his drink, his eyes never leaving hers. "I asked about you, found out your name, your history, your situation, and I became fascinated." "Fascinated," Jane repeated, the word tasting bitter. "That's a nice way of saying obsessed." "Obsessed works too." He didn't even have the grace to look ashamed. "I started following you, watching you, learning everything about you. The way you move through the world with this purpose, this determination to save people even when they don't deserve it. The way you sacrifice everything for a sister who's never once thanked you for it. The way you're so much stronger than you believe." "That's not fascination. That's stalking. It's sick." "Perhaps." He set down his glass, leaned forward with his elbows on his knees, closing the distance between them. "But then your sister came to me, desperate and stupid, looking for a loan she knew she'd never repay. And I saw an opportunity, a way to bring you into my world, without forcing you, without making you hate me more than necessary." Jane's stomach dropped. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I gave your sister $2 million knowing she'd default, knowing the debt would transfer to you, knowing it would give me exactly what I wanted, you, with no way out." His smile was cold and satisfied. I orchestrated this entire situation, Jane. From the moment Zara walked into my office to this conversation right now. All of it was designed to make you mine. The admission hung in the air between them, monstrous in its calculation. Jane couldn't breathe, couldn't think past the roaring in her ears. You manipulated my sister's addiction to trap me? Your sister manipulated herself. I just provided the rope. He stood, moved around the table with that predatory grace, and suddenly he was crouching in front of her, his hands on the armrests of her chair, caging her in. But here's the truth, Jane. The truth I've been avoiding saying because it makes me vulnerable, and I fucking hate being vulnerable. I don't just want to own you. I want you to choose me. I want you to look at me the way you look at your patients, like I'm worth saving, like I'm more than just the monster everyone knows I am. You are a monster, she whispered, but her voice cracked on the words. Because despite everything, despite the manipulation and the stalking and the sheer insanity of this situation, there was something in his eyes that looked almost human, almost desperate. I know. His hand came up, fingers threading through her hair with surprising gentleness. But I could be your monster, and you could be my salvation. Isn't that worth something? What are you offering, Daeun, specifically? No games. I want you to stay with me. 3 months minimum. You live in my home. You belong to me in every way that matters. In exchange, your sister's debt is forgiven. You keep your job at the hospital, keep your life, but your nights are mine. After 3 months, if you want to leave, you can. No strings, no threats, no revenge. You walk away free. And if I refuse, his jaw tightened, then I collect on your sister's debt the traditional way. I find Zara, and I make her disappear. You'll never see her again, and you'll spend the rest of your life wondering if she's dead or wishing she was, because what I do to people who steal from me is worse than death. Jane's hands curled into fists. You're asking me to be your whore. I'm asking you to be mine. There's a difference. He stood, offered his hand like this was a normal business transaction, and not the destruction of everything she'd worked for. 3 months, Jane. Give me 3 months to prove I'm more than what you think I am. To prove we could be something extraordinary together. She stared at his hand, at the tattoos winding around his fingers, at the calluses that spoke of violence and the surprising steadiness that spoke of control. Every rational part of her brain screamed to refuse, to take her chances, to believe that someone would help her. But she thought of Mr. Chen, of her co-workers, of every person Daeun could hurt if she said no. She thought of Zara, stupid and selfish and still her baby sister, the only family she had left. And she thought of the way Daeun looked at her, like she was precious and powerful and worth burning the world for. It was insane. It was wrong. It was the worst decision she'd ever make. 3 months, Jane said, and placed her hand in his. But I have conditions. His fingers closed around hers, warm and possessive. Name them. I keep my job. I visit my patients when I want. I keep my phone, my freedom during the day. And you don't touch me unless I say you can. I'm not your property, Daeun. I'm your partner, or this doesn't work. Something shifted in his expression. Surprise, maybe. Or respect. Deal, with one addition. What? He pulled her to her feet, reeled her in until her body was flush against his, and she could feel every hard line of him, the muscles, the heat, the leashed violence humming under his skin. You give this a real chance. No sabotage, no half measures. You try to see me, the real me, not just the monster. Can you do that? Jane's heart hammered against her ribs. This close, she could see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes, could smell his cologne mixed with something uniquely him, could feel the careful control in the way he held her, like she was something breakable and precious. I can try. Good enough. And then he was kissing her. It wasn't gentle. It was claiming and desperate and searingly hot, his mouth demanding response and his hands cupping her face like he was trying to memorize the shape of her. Jane gasped against his lips, and he took advantage, deepening the kiss until her knees went weak and her hands fisted in his shirt just to stay upright. When he finally pulled back, they were both breathing hard, and his pupils were blown so wide, his eyes looked black. 3 months, he said against her mouth, starting now. If you're still here, you're my kind of person. Hit that subscribe button because things are about to get so much darker. Comment your theories below. Daeun's home wasn't what Jane expected. She'd imagined something cold and modern, all glass and steel like a supervillain's lair. Instead, he brought her to a converted warehouse in the industrial district, the kind of space that had probably housed manufacturing equipment 50 years ago, and now served as the ultimate luxury bachelor pad. Exposed brick walls, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Elliott Bay, furniture that managed to be both comfortable and expensive. There was art on the walls, real art, not the kind of generic prints you bought at Home Goods. Asian artists she recognized from the Seattle Art Museum. Bold strokes and haunting imagery that spoke of diaspora and identity and violence, transformed into beauty. "This is your room," Daeun said, opening a door to reveal a space that was easily twice the size of her entire apartment. King bed with crisp white linens, attached bathroom with a tub that could fit 3 people, a walk-in closet that was currently empty. "I had clothes ordered for you. They'll arrive tomorrow. Your size, your style, nothing you wouldn't choose for yourself." "How do you know my size? I pay attention." He moved to the windows, hands in his pockets, looking out at the city lights, reflecting off the water. "There are rules if you're going to live here. First, you don't leave without telling me where you're going. Not because I want to control you, but because I have enemies who would love to hurt me through you. Second, if something feels wrong, if anyone approaches you, threatens you, makes you uncomfortable, you tell me immediately. Third, the West Wing is off limits. That's where I conduct business, and you don't want to see what happens there." "And what happens there?" He turned, and his expression was carved from stone. "Things that would make you hate me. Things I do to protect what's mine. You don't need those images in your head, Jane. Trust me." She didn't trust him. Not even a little. But she nodded anyway. "What about your rules for you? What do you mean?" "You gave me 3 rules. What are your rules? What are you promising me?" Daeun considered this, head tilted like he'd never thought about it before. "I won't lie to you. I won't hurt you unless you ask me to. And I won't let anyone else hurt you ever. That's my promise." "Unless I ask you to." Jane's eyebrows rose. "That's a weird caveat." His smile was slow and dark. "You'd be surprised what people ask for when they feel safe, when they trust someone enough to give up control." He moved closer, each step deliberate. "I've been watching you for 6 months, Jane. I know you carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. I know you make life and death decisions every day and never get to fall apart about it. I know you're exhausted from being strong all the time. And I'm offering you something most people never get, permission to let go. To stop being the caretaker for once and let someone take care of you. By trapping me in a contract that's basically prostitution. By giving you a space where you don't have to pretend anymore, where you can be angry, scared, selfish, weak, whatever you need to be without judgment." He was right in front of her now, close enough to touch but not touching. "I see you, Jane Morrison, the real you underneath all that armor, and I'm not afraid of her." Something in her chest cracked open at those words. Because when was the last time someone had really seen her? Not Jane the nurse, not Jane the responsible older sister, not Jane the strong black woman who could handle anything. just Jane. Messy and exhausted, and so tired of being the adult in every room. "I need to shower," she said, because she didn't know what else to say to that. "And sleep. It's been the longest day of my life." "Of course." He stepped back, giving her space. "Anything you need, just ask. I have a housekeeper who comes in the mornings, Mrs. Park. She doesn't speak much English, but she's kind. She'll make breakfast, keep things running. And Jane." He paused at the door. "Thank you for choosing this, for choosing me. I know it wasn't really a choice, but I'm grateful anyway." Then he was gone, the door clicking shut behind him, and Jane was alone in a bedroom that cost more than she'd ever make in a year, wearing a borrowed dress, committed to 3 months of playing house with a criminal who'd manipulated her entire life to get her here. She should be terrified. She should be planning her escape. Instead, she stripped off the dress, stepped into that massive bathtub, and let herself cry, for the first time since this nightmare began. Because Daeun was right about one thing. She was so goddamn tired of being strong all the time. The water was still hot. An hour later when the door opened, Jane didn't jump, didn't cover herself, just watched through the steam as Daeun entered, like he had every right to be there. "You said you wouldn't touch me unless I asked," she said, her voice surprisingly steady. "I won't." He sat on the edge of the tub, rolled up his sleeves and picked up a washcloth. "But I didn't say I wouldn't take care of you." Lean forward. She should refuse, should tell him to get out, that this was too intimate, too much. But there was something in his eyes, something careful and almost tender, that made her obey. She leaned forward, and his hands were suddenly on her back, the washcloth warm and soapy, moving in slow circles across her shoulders. "You're tense," he murmured, "all knotted up right here." His thumbs dug into a particularly tight spot, and Jane couldn't stop the small sound of relief that escaped her. "When's the last time someone took care of you, Jane? Really took care of you?" "I don't remember." "That's what I thought." He worked methodically, washing her back, her shoulders, the nape of her neck, and it was the least sexual, intimate thing anyone had ever done to her. He wasn't trying to seduce her. He was trying to soothe her, and somehow that was more dangerous than any seduction could be. "Why me?" she asked quietly. "You could have anyone. Women who are already in this world, who understand it. Why go through all this trouble for someone who hates you?" "Because you don't hate me." "Not really." His hands stilled. "You hate what I represent. The loss of control, the danger, the moral compromise, but me. The person underneath the reputation. I don't think you've decided how you feel about him yet. And that's more than anyone else has given me in 20 years. Jane turned to look at him, water dripping down her face, and found him watching her with something raw and unguarded in his expression. Vulnerable. This man who terrified her, who'd manipulated her, who held her life in his hands, looked vulnerable. "Tell me something true," she said. "Not about the debt or my sister or any of this. Something real." Daeun was quiet for a long moment, his hand still, resting on her shoulder. Then, "My mother died when I was 8. Cancer. My father blamed me because I was born in the year of the snake, and he believed it brought bad luck to the family. He sent me to work for his organization when I was 12. I killed my first man when I was 15. His name was Kim Jae, and he was trying to leave the organization, which meant he was a traitor. My father made me do it to prove my loyalty. I still dream about his face sometimes." The confession hung in the air, heavy with old pain. Jane reached up, covered his hand with hers. "That's not your fault. You were a child. I know that logically. But the dreams don't care about logic." He brought her hand to his lips, kissed her knuckles with surprising gentleness. "I've done terrible things, Jane. things that would make you sick, but I've never pretended to be anything other than what I am. And what I am is someone who wants you so badly it scares me. Someone who would burn this entire city down if it meant keeping you safe. That's the truth. Jane should be horrified, should pull away, should remember that he was the villain in this story. But all she could think about was that 15-year-old boy forced to commit murder. That 8-year-old who lost his mother and got blamed for it. The man who'd built an empire out of violence because it was the only thing he'd ever been taught. I need time, she whispered. Time to figure out what I feel, what this is. You have 3 months. Take all the time you need. He stood, grabbed a towel from the rack and held it open for her. Come on, you need sleep. She stepped out of the tub, let him wrap the towel around her, and didn't protest when he picked her up like she weighed nothing and carried her to the bed. He laid her down gently, pulled the covers up to her chin, and pressed a kiss to her forehead that felt almost chaste. Good night, Jane. I'm right down the hall if you need anything. Daeun. She caught his hand as he turned to leave. That thing you said about people asking you to hurt them when they feel safe. Did you mean it? His eyes darkened. Every word. I might ask, someday, when I'm ready to let go. And I'll be honored to catch you when you fall. He squeezed her hand once, then left, closing the door behind him. Jane lay in the darkness, listening to the sounds of the city outside and the unfamiliar creaks of this new space, and tried to figure out what the hell she'd just agreed to. 3 months of living with a man who terrified her and fascinated her in equal measure. 3 months of learning whether the monster could be human, or if the human had always been the monster. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. A text from an unknown number. Big sis, I'm so sorry, I fucked up. I'll make it right, I promise. Love you. Zara. Jane stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it without responding, because the sister she'd sacrificed everything for had sold her out, without a second thought, and the criminal who'd manipulated her into captivity had just washed her back and told her his deepest trauma. The world had stopped making sense, and Jane was too tired to figure out when that had happened. She fell asleep with Daeun's promise echoing in her head. I'll be honored to catch you when you fall. And for the first time in 9 years of being the strong one, of being the caretaker, of holding everything together through sheer force of will, Jane let herself imagine what it might feel like to fall, to let go, to trust someone else to be strong for once, even if that someone was a monster, especially if that monster saw her, really saw her, in a way no one else ever had. 3 months, 90 days to figure out if she was falling in love or losing her mind. Jane had a feeling it might be both. If you made it to the end, you're the real MVP. Smash that like button, subscribe for part 2 because, yes, there's more to this story, and comment below whether you think Jane should run or stay. Drop your location too. I love seeing where my dark romance lovers are watching from. Until next time, stay dangerous, stay curious, and remember, sometimes the monster is exactly what you need.